Hi, everybody. It's Hallie Hara. We are continuing to examine the topic of experiential learning. And today, our focus is on building organizational relationships at your field placement site. So, really, in its essence, we can call it building organizational relationships, but really what it is networking. And the idea of networking causes me to have a reaction common to my favorite characters on the show Schitt's Creek. Like David might say it's very awkward and cringy, or his sister Alexis might say, "Ooh, David, networking." And to be honest, my initial reaction to it is not dissimilar. To me, it feels forced, fake, maybe frightening. And so, in order to avoid those thoughts and getting stuck in those thoughts, we're going to talk about reframing relationship building today. So, the first place we start is we acknowledge that this might be uncomfortable, right? That we might be a little bit anxious about building new relationships, about talking to new people. But that doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. I think one of the biggest lessons about being a new attorney is that you have to get comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable, and sit with that anxiety and don't let you stop. Don't let it hold you back or stop you from doing what you need to do. And in this case, that's building some new relationships. You have a hook. If you are externing at a site, you can blame your coursework, your site supervisor, or your fieldwork supervisor in order to try and have a meeting with someone, right? You can say, Mr. Jones, I have to do journal entries for my externships and and I thought doing an informational interview with you would be a great way to do one of those journal entries. Would you mind sitting down with me for about 10 minutes, just so I can ask you some questions, because that would be a great journal entry for me. So use your course requirements. Think beyond just the site supervisor that you work with all the time. There are other attorneys at your site, I'm sure, who are doing work that you're interested in. And there's fellow externs there. Those are also people that you could get to know. These people are going to make up your professional network in the future. So really think out of the box when you're looking to have these conversations with people. Keyboard bravery is a good place to start. Look up folks on LinkedIn. If there's a newsletter at your site, see what you can find out. Find an org chart, look at people's bios. I think doing your homework at your keyboard will actually help you make more authentic relationships in person, because you'll have some things to talk about. You'll know about the person's background. We live in a day and age where when you send an application through the internet, it gets lost in cyberspace. The more of these connections that you can make, the less likely your applications in the future get lost in cyberspace. So really, it's worth the investment to do your time and to sort of look into the people that you're working with to figure out who may be good people for me to connect with. You will make mistakes, and you have to learn to laugh at yourself. I have made many, many mistakes. Here I'm highlighting two of them for you. One is I was in the courthouse in the Northern District of Ohio, and I got on the elevator and I turned to the woman next to me and I said, "Oh, do you work in that building?" And to her credit, she was very gracious. She shook my hand and she said, "My name is Patricia Gaughan." And it turned out that I later learned that she was a United States District Court judge. She is a United States District Court judge. And so clearly I should have known who she was, considering there were just a handful of judges in the building. But I didn't, and it was my mistake. And honestly, I saw her many, many times after that. And to her credit, she never seemed to hold it against me. So that was when I had to kind of laugh at myself. But even probably perhaps more embarrassing was when I was in a supervisor's office getting an assignment, and I saw this great picture. It looked to me like one of those senior pictures that you would take in high school, with the white backdrop. As I'm sitting down, I'm making conversation. I said, "Oh, is that your daughter?" And he said, "My daughter, that's my wife." And all my friends had a great laugh at my expense. And I was obviously extremely embarrassed. But I lived to tell about it. I continued to get assignments from that person. And so just know going into this that as you're trying to build relationships, as you're trying to navigate this thing called networking, you will make mistakes. So it's okay. Learn to laugh at yourself, learn to forgive yourself. You will live to tell about it, I promise. So you reach out to someone. How do you do it? How do you propose a meeting? Coffee opens people up. It's a short time commitment, a small financial commitment. It's much less intimidating than lunch or even a drink. Not everybody drinks. Even if people don't drink coffee, odds are they can find something that they want to order at a local coffee shop. So I think that coffee is just a great way to connect with someone. Even if you're connecting over Zoom, you can have a quick Zoom coffee with somebody, bring your own coffee. But it opens people up, and it's a good thing, I think, to suggest. As you're going into this coffee meeting, redefine the experience. So think of it as a two-way street. I have a little snippet in here that I won't read. You can read if you'd like. It's a reminder from one of my favorite movies, Bridget Jones's Diary. And it's the idea that you should introduce people with thoughtful details. If you are in a coffee shop, right? If you're physically together in a space, and a friend walks by, a classmate walks by, make the introduction. The smaller you can make the world for the person that you're sitting with, it helps them too, right? So don't just do a wave, say, "This is so and so. She's in my business associations class," and that person could say hello. So anyway, there are benefits all over. This is not just about you. It's not just about the person that you're meeting with. Building organizational relationships benefit your future employer, your future clients. So think of it that way. When it's not about you, it may feel slightly more comfortable. Okay, so I was just on a webinar the other day and someone had a really clever quote. They said, "A mind is like a parachute, it only works when it's open." And I really like that. Come with an open mind. Don't feel like you know all the answers. You may have had one experience at your site, but you may be about to learn something very different about that workplace. So come with an open mind, ready to listen, prepare, do some of that keyboard preparation that we talked about, and then have, three or so questions in mind. Odds are, if the person's friendly, you may not even need those questions, but it will make you feel better to have a few in mind. And they don't have to be anything earth shattering. Can you tell me how you got your first law job? Are you from Columbus, Ohio? How did you end up at this location? What do you think the organization is looking for in hiring candidates? And then if I'm looking to do the type of work you're practicing, are there any professional organizations that I should be a part of? But relationships really are built on candor, on being yourself, right? Authenticity, trust. So just go into it with those things in mind. The more you can be yourself, the better off you'll be. Please, please, please don't go into these sort of networking meetings asking for a job. If you come with an ask, it's off-putting. If your ask is simply, "Tell me about yourself, I'm just looking to learn," with the hook of my externship course, it's a whole different message than, "I want to work here." Even if you do want to work there, you don't want to lead in one of these meetings with that. Um, don't have a script. Be open to listening to what the other person is saying and asking follow-up questions. And again, try not to consider it networking. Just consider it getting to know somebody at your externship site. So after you've had the coffee, you're all caffeinated, what do you do? Write down some notes so that you can remember something you talked about. We've all had that experience where someone will remember a detail that we said, and it instantly makes somebody feel so good. If somebody's telling you about a case they're working on and you see them in the hall, 2 weeks later, and you could say, "Oh, how did that deposition go?" So follow up in a very friendly way, be pleasant and keep in touch. And then, if you've sat down with someone, be brave enough to say hello, check in, see how they're doing when you see them, or even through email. We've all had that experience where you've met someone time and time again, and I don't know what that's about, but they don't sort of recognize you. It doesn't register, even if you've spent time with this person. You don't want to be that person. Just be friendly, be yourself. So, taking a step back and looking beyond the organization that you're in right now, and just thinking about networking generally, it's a very critical skill, but nobody's really excited about it. You have to be a true extrovert to be excited about the idea of working a room or gaining social capital. Those words sound dreadful to me, and they probably sound dreadful to you too. And so, of course, I do what I always do, and I look at the data. And there's a new professional connection study that says, our feelings are quite valid because networking tends to make us feel dirty and we feel awkward every time. So there is kind of, if you look into the current language and the current thought around it, there's a refreshing perspective that you can redefine it as understanding the people around you. David Burkus is a perfect example of somebody who does that. He has a TED Talk, he has a book called Friend of a Friend, and he teaches people how to grow their networks and build connections. But his method is based on science of human behavior, not just your same old rote networking advice, carry a business card, that kind of thing. Really is based on data, which always appeals to me. And his whole premise is that you can, that the research tells us to redefine networking in three meaningful ways. And they all have to do with friendship building, reconnecting with old friends, right? If you've been out of touch with college friends or high school friends, a good way to start networking just to reach out to those folks, see what they're up to. I love the second one because it's something that's close to my heart. Turn work friends into real friends. Many of my closest friends to this day I've met in the workplace. And so really embrace those relationships, embrace those connections. I'm telling you, they are some of the most meaningful in my life. And then connect through friends of friends, right? So I have a co-clerk that I became very close to when we worked at the district court together. And she is much younger than me. She's a recent law school graduate. And occasionally I'll need a recent law school grad as a speaker. And so I've called her more than once and said, "Hey, I need a speaker on X. Can you connect me with someone who might fit that?" And so I'm connecting through my friend, right, to her friends. And when you do it that way, it is so much better than me just calling somebody, who I found on the internet and saying, "Hi, I was wondering if you could come speak to my class." So the idea is that it's not about meeting strangers at a networking event or a dinner party. It's not about making more money. It's about having fulfilling relationships. And so whether it's within your organization or outside your organization, if you think about it that way, it feels a whole lot better. And, last, I always like to remind you that you can do this. This is not anything that you can't overcome. You have all the skills to do this now. You have the hook of your externship course. You don't want to sort of kick yourself later that you wish you had gotten to know more people and had stretched yourself a little bit. I'm hoping to encourage you to do that today. Just do your best. And as always, I'll be rooting for you. Thanks.